Hi, I'm Anna, and I'm going to do an introduction to AI. So we all say AI, AI, AI. So let's get our terms straight so we all know what we're talking about. So AI is an umbrella term for machines mimicking the way humans learn, reason, and even make actions. And when we talked about AI, we usually talk mostly about machine learning. There are many types of machine learning algorithms. Statistical, heuristics, black box. And we kind of started using AI and machine learning synonymously, but like if we want to set our terms straight, I think it's useful to think of it. We say AI when it's the application, and we say machine learning when it's the model. And part of machine learning is deep learning that started in the 2010s. And deep learning is really artificial neural networks that have many layers and try to mimic the way the human brain works. Generative AI, which created all the recent hype, is really mostly based on deep learning models. And large language model is part of generative AI. Generative AI is AI that generates text, audio, pictures, video, code, and a lot of it is controlled by large language models, a lot of which are developed with deep learning models. And large language models are part of the wider research that is called natural language processing, or NLP. And it's been flourishing for the last 15 years. And GPT is a large language model, and GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Fun fact, transformers were invented by Google. So, was AI invented in November 2022 when OpenAI launched ChatGPT? What do you think? No. AI has been around for at least 70 years. It's all started in the 50s with Alan Turing, who wrote the paper Computing Machinery and Intelligence. I didn't want to make a mistake on the title, which posed the very important questions: can machines think? And that led to the Turing test, which was originally called the imitation game. The Turing test is really whether a human can decipher between a human and AI in a conversation. And today, first time ever, we have many AI systems that actually pass the Turing test. The birth of the term AI and of the field of research of AI was in 1956 at the Dartmouth conference that was organized by John McCarthy. And then in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we had a lot of experimentation and development of AI with flourishing of what is called expert system, which is mainly based on heuristics. In the 90s, we had a lot of machine learning development, black box algorithms, and what we started using the term big data. It was the flourishing of big data. And then in the 2000s, we started using AI in our everyday life. Think spell checkers, recommendation engines, streaming, Netflix, Spotify. In particular, in 2010, thanks to the evolution in computing power with GPUs, we had the pioneering of deep learning. You remember deep learning, artificial neural networks that mimic the way human brain works. And in 2020, with the flourishing of natural language processing, generative AI, and large language models, we had the current hype, which is really democratization of AI. And everybody started using it because natural language is so natural to humans. And instead of learning to code, we can just speak to the computers and ask them to do this and that. And 2025 is considered to be the year of the agentic AI, where we're not just asking questions, but we're actually sending the AI to do things for us. And of course, with great opportunity comes great responsibilities, and it also raised a lot of ethical considerations that we need to think about when we're developing all this amazing AI. I want to kind of note a few important steps in the evolution of AI, specifically in the last 20 years when it was really kind of rising. But even before that, I want to mention Aaron by the artist Harold Cohen, which was probably the first generative AI before the term was widely used. Harold Cohen was a painter and a technologist, and he built a machine which had software that he trained on his own art and an actual physical machine that painted painting based on what he trained on his own painting. And he developed it through late 70s, 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s until he passed, I think in 2012. And it's quite amazing because he was talking about how the interaction between the human and the AI and the machine is actually enhancing the creativity of both. Looking at you, Laurie. So in 2011, IBM Watson won Jeopardy, and we saw more and more where the AI started outsmart human now and then. We had the development of AlphaGo and AlphaZero following up in 2017, and those AI software were trained just by learning the rules of the game and then could win complicated strategic games of previously strong software or human champions of Go and of chess. Chess is a really complicated game, right? And this AI, AlphaZero, could just learn it and train itself from the rules and win over chess champions. In the 2013, 2014, we had the GAN. GANs is Generative Adversarial Networks, and that is the foundation for all the deep fakes and all the videos of people that don't really exist and synthetic data. In 2016 and 2017, the transformers were invented with the Attention All You Need paper by Google researchers that introduced this concept that kind of is the foundation, what a lot of what we have today in natural language processing. The first transformers, like BERT by Hugging Face, were widely used as open source model, and companies used them to create summaries, translations. And the first GPT, GPT-1, was launched by OpenAI in 2018, and it was already pretty cool, and it could answer questions and do some kind of cool language stuff, but it wasn't foolproof, it wasn't good enough. And then a lot of other models followed. And in 2020, GPT-3 was released, and it created a lot of hype in the data science community because it was exciting, it was much better. In 2021, AlphaFold was invented. It's kind of a follow-up to AlphaZero, but it's about protein folding, really unlocking the secrets of protein, a very important invention. And in November 2022, ChatGPT, OpenAI, that democratized AI for us all, and now it's really kind of natural that every person and every company and every business and every industry using AI, and generative AI in particular, for the business, for productivity, for innovation, and whatnot. In 2024, some of the AI pioneers were finally recognized with Nobel Prizes, such as Jeffrey Hinton. He co-won the Nobel Prize in Physics for pioneering deep learning. And the Miss Hassabis, I hope I pronounce his name correctly, co-won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for AlphaFold. In 2025, we already have AlphaFold 3 that together with all the genomic advances really opens up amazing opportunity in pharma and healthcare for drug discovery and personalized therapies and personal medicine, really mind-blowing. together with CRISPR and other inventions, it's going to change a lot of people's life for the better. And talking about that, again, with big opportunity comes big responsibility, and we want to make sure that AI is used for good, to help the world, to help society. And that brings us to our panel, which is AI for social good. So let me introduce our amazing panelists. And I will start with Regan Blyle, who is a co-founder and CEO of Align AI, and she's also a founder of Women in Analytics. Regan works with highly regulated companies to design AI solutions, helping get value from AI quickly and safely with the Align AI adoption and governance platform. But that's not all. She's also a fierce advocate for women in AI as a founder of Women in Analytics, a community with over 7,000 participants, and she had put not less than 250 women on stage. Regan? My second panelist is Laurie Mazur, CEO and founder of Synthetivity and author of the best-selling book, Temperature, that deals with creativity and AI. Laurie teaches creativity in the age of AI with a human touch. I would say that Laurie is like an architect of creativity and AI, but Laurie is actually an architect and an educator. And she educated over 5,000 executives and organizations in applied AI. In addition, Laurie is a creator herself, and now she's busy writing a musical entitled Better. And yes, of course, she's doing it with AI. Laurie? Last but not least, Erin McHugh-Saif. She's a Chief Product Officer at Microsoft Tech for Social Impact. Erin leads AI, industry innovation, and strategy at Microsoft Tech for Social Impact, a real tech and AI for social good. And it's an organization that makes advanced technologies accessible to over 400,000 nonprofit organizations worldwide. A true tech social good trailblazer, Erin launches market-leading SaaS and AI products as a product leader, and she's driving product development to accelerate social mission, impact, and outcomes. Please help me to welcome Erin. Okay. A lot of gadget to manipulate here. So we all let's see if it's not busy. Very good. So we all talk about AI for social good here. And you remember, I like to set up terms. So when we were prepping for this panel, we started talking about what does AI for social good really means. Some people think AI for social good means nonprofit support. Some think it's about making our society less biased. Some think that it's for enhancing equity and inclusion. There are different opinions, so I want each of the panelists today to share their opinion about what is AI for social good, and we will start with you, Regan, if that's okay. What do you think AI for social good is?
Yeah, I think it's all of those things. Being in the space for a while, hearing a lot of conversations about ethics and AI, we're really striking this balance of being in a capitalistic society and people wanting to monetize on the technology with making sure that the tech actually does good for everyone. And I think the complicated thing about AI is that it's based on data, and the more data it has on something, the better it does. And we're not historically very good at capturing data that is well represented of everyone. So we're building technology that is a lot more effective in certain domains for certain people. And if you think about that from a capitalistic perspective, that makes sense because you want to go after the dollars of as many people as you possibly can. And so we're in this battle between monetizing this incredible technology and making sure we're not leaving anybody else behind. And I think that's what's so great about the nonprofit ecosystem and what we can do to try to encourage or incentivize companies to think about it more ethically. And so when I think about social good, that's why I think about it very holistically. So including supporting our nonprofits out there, because it is a very powerful technology, and enabling them with their mission. It's also equipping nonprofits to support ethics in AI and make sure that companies have the resources and things that they need to think about it from that perspective. And then it's also encouraging societally people to be aware of some of these issues that we're facing and how to fix them. And so it's having conversations like this where we can have kind of a multidisciplinary approach to what does that mean. So that's why I think it's very holistic, and that's the way I think about it.
Thank you, Regan. And I always say that AI can be only as good as the data that was fed to the model, and only as creative as the human directing it. Laurie, what do you think?
So I think when I started using AI, it was a mirror on humanity. I mean, these are models that have been trained on a compendium of human knowledge, a giant library, and some of the things I saw were scary. And it reflected back to me some of the aspects of humanity I wasn't so excited about. But it also gave me the opportunity to see it for the first time in a different way, and I think that's the beginning of making change. So a lot of my work is about helping people to see themselves through AI and to see how they can empower themselves to be the best possible human being they can be. And that for some might be making pictures of goats doing yoga, and for others that might be learning how to vibe code.
Yeah, Laurie, in our conversation you told me, and I loved it, that anything that better humanity is AI for social good, right? I couldn't agree more. Erin, what do you think?
+1 to everything Regan and Laurie have said. And the way we see this incredible opportunity for the nonprofit and intergovernmental sectors at Microsoft Philanthropies and Microsoft Tech for Social Impact is that this technology, we want our ecosystem to be at the front-running edge of leveraging this powerful technology to serve the most vulnerable, to lift up communities that may not have access to the most advanced technologies. And we think it is incredibly important that this work be done in partnership across the over 10 million nonprofit organizations worldwide and their partners, foundations, philanthropic funders, community organizations, and the populations they serve. The populations that they serve needing to be in the center of ensuring that our models are trained in an unbiased, ethical, responsible way, and that the problems this technology is pointed at solving are going to benefit and aid humanity, our Earth, our communities, especially in times that we're navigating currently. And so we see also a critical responsibility in helping to train communities and participants and nonprofit staff to leverage this technology now before the gap of who has it and who doesn't widens any further. And we've seen this play out before, and it's going to take real commitment to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
I love this, Erin, kind of taking action before the gap widens, right? And kind of as we mentioned now, part of how we perceive AI for social good is like the use and empowerment of nonprofits, right? So, Laurie, I was wondering if you're willing to share what, in your mind, are some of the greatest challenges nonprofits face with adopting AI, and how this can be addressed practically and affordably, because part of it is also the affordability of AI, not just the adoption, right? What do you think? How nonprofits can leverage AI tools within their budgets and technical resources?
Yeah, I mean, I think of this very much like the Microsoft Excel era of our time. I mean, can you think of a single thing that you don't do with a spreadsheet? Right? Everybody does something with a spreadsheet, even if it's like keeping track of your kids' soccer games. And so I think that rather than thinking of it solely as something that's going to be implemented at the enterprise level, I want people to think about it as a federated approach, that this is your technology and it's personalized for you. So you might use it to help you plan out your travel. You might use it to help you analyze. I use it to analyze the papal essay on ethics, which is 120 pages long, right? I might use it to synthesize a lot of different data across different applications. And so for every person, that will be different. For nonprofits, that is a $20 a month per person commitment. Right? So this is not breaking the bank. This is not like these multi-million-dollar software products. But I think the biggest hurdle for nonprofits is the fear that they have that they use it for good, right? And people are really afraid that this is a technology that can do really terrible things as well as wonderful things, and therefore that inhibits people from experimenting and from trying it. And so I just encourage people to kind of hold both of those truths simultaneously. It can be both awesome and awful at the same time, as can most things in our life, including fire.
So it's all about people, right? It's all in our hands, whether we do good with it or bad with it or what we do with it. It's only as good as the people controlling it. Thank you, Laurie. Erin, you are part of a really big tech. You're part of Microsoft, right? So do you think that big tech can help nonprofits with AI and can help empower both nonprofits and underserved communities with AI and AI training? What do you think? What does Microsoft does on that? Please share some examples.
Yeah, it's not a can we, it's a we must, I think. And I know we feel a deep, deep responsibility given our work, given that our technology is pivoting at warp speed to these new tools. And it all starts with providing access, education, training, and discounts, programs, and grants. And so we'll provide you with a long list of resources at the end of this, and please come find me. But it all starts with training and skilling and breaking the ice. Right now, I spend an enormous amount of my time traveling around the country and meeting with nonprofit staff and boards and the foundations that they work with to break the ice. Let's experiment together. Let's get over the scary. Let's get your boards on board with AI governance frameworks, with access to training. We have a program called Skills for Social Impact with over 45 self-paced training tools, and you can go it your own way. But it does take a time and breaking of the ice to help leaders and their teams get over that first hump. We're finding that when you do that in a community of trusted peers and leaders, it's fun, it's interesting, and there are aha moments all over the place. But there's another very practical business reason why this is our business. We are seeing adoption by the nonprofit sector and nonprofit workers who are bringing their own AI to work faster than their commercial peers, faster. at a rate of 2.7 times. So if your organization does not have an AI governance model or a perspective on ethical, responsible use, you need one now, right? They're already experimenting and using these tools of their choice. And that will just continue. And we're finding that organizations who are adopting faster are seeing, for every dollar that they invest in this technology, a $3.71 return on their investment within the first 12 months of their use. So there's a business sense to it. Nonprofit boards understand this, and their funders are really motivated and excited to invest. But what keeps us going are the actual practical outcomes that nonprofits are facing. I'll share just two of those very quickly. Operation Smile is an amazing organization that provides cleft palate surgeries to youth and patients. They're leveraging Azure OpenAI and other tools for a couple of reasons. One, to visually identify cleft palate patients faster. Doing so has led them to increase the number of surgeries they provide by 15% in just 12 months. They've also seen a real help in translating doctors and patient intake notes from the multiple languages that they use in the field. And that has increased their ability to triage patients by 95%. This is often going from pen to paper, from notebook or notepad, to that first tool, or sometimes even to a picture, and the translation. And what every nonprofit worker, not every, but most now do have, is a mobile device. And so we can move from pen and paper to picture to translation through photos and images to speed of service delivery. And that's truly, truly exciting. And I'll share the other stories later when you find them.
Thank you, Erin. This is really inspiring. And kind of, I think you're right. People have their own devices, they have their tools of choice, the adoption is increasing, and we all need to embrace this kind of variety of things. And speaking about variety, as somebody who worked both in academia and the tech industry, I'm always fascinated about the collaboration and interplay between academia and the tech industry in research and advancing technologies and AI and innovation. And sometimes the academia leaps forward and takes and pulls the industry after it. And sometimes it's the tech industry that pulls forward and research comes along, right? And I've always been really fascinated about the collaboration between the two. And now we're also starting to think about this interplay and collaboration, not just between tech and academia, but also nonprofits as part of technology and AI for social good, because nonprofits play a crucial role in that, right? So, Lori, I want to ask you first, maybe you'll share some thoughts about what do you think about this amazing collaboration and interplay between academia, technology, and nonprofits in advancing AI and AI adoption?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason I'm here in Boston today, and not to diss New York or anything, but you guys have a pretty amazing community here. I have been here at least 4 or 5 times over the past year because this is a place where everybody is coming together and collaborating in a way that, frankly, I'm not seeing in some of the larger cities around the country. So yes, give yourself a round of applause there.
Yay, Boston!
Yeah, and I think it's, number one, you've got an incredible government, both local and at the state level, that really understand the power of AI. You have had a community that has been incubating businesses for over, 30, 40 years. I was a Wellesley student. I have my fellow Wellesley alum next to me. And yes, go Wellesley. You have an amazing academic community where people stay in Boston after they graduate. And you have partnerships then with people who then go out into the world and then give back. So I would just continue to come out to events like you're coming tonight, meet other people. It's all about relationships, right? And it just takes one person like Anna to organize a movement. So thank you to the Boston Club for having us here. You guys are doing an amazing job.
Thank you, Lori. And we couldn't agree more, right? Boston rocks on AI. And in September, we're going to have the Boston AI Week coming up. So, Erin, kind of Microsoft is a big part of it, both on the research and the supporting, and it plays a crucial role, both in the tech side and on the research side. So what do you think about the collaboration between tech, academia, and nonprofits?
Yeah, I think it couldn't be more important than it is now. And as we've seen so many nonprofit organizations needing to pivot in the pandemic, needing to pivot to running their operations digitally or over video chat. Teams is our preference of choice. And now having to pivot away from funding streams that were reliable and diversifying their funding partners and their community collaborating partners, the intersection of research, of academia, of the nonprofit sector and the corporate sector could not be more important. And this is the only way through, is more deeply relying on those partnerships and holding each other to account, holding our institutions to account so that you can continue to do the critical work you do in the field and with the communities every day.
Thank you, Erin. And you know, we said AI for social good is a lot about nonprofits, but it's also about diversity, equity, about opportunities for all the communities. And the Boston Club is an organization that empowers women, and we kind of start thinking of how the generative AI hype can possibly have more women enter the AI and technology world. Is it gonna help equity in technology leadership for women? And I wanted to ask you, Regan, as somebody who is the founder of the Women in Analytics and having put so many women on stage talking about AI, what do you think? Is the recent generative AI hype gonna help equity in sense of more women? We currently have about 20% of women in tech. We want to have it 50-50. Do you think it's gonna help? And what advice would you give to women who want to enter the AI and technology world?
Yeah, I started looking at this about a decade ago is when I started the organization. And I think the big perplexing thing for me was that there are tons of women in stats, like over 50% if you looked in academia. And stats is a really core component to AI. And then when computer science became more critical in order to process all the data that we were capturing and leveraging to train these models, we saw a big drop-off in women's participation in this field. And I feel like we keep ebbing and flowing between that technical role of AI and the non-technical role of AI. In the last 4 or 5 years, I would say, because we host a couple of events every year in the AI data ecosystem where all of our speakers are women. So I see tons of applications, over maybe 1,000 applications every year of women who want to speak at our events, all in the AI field and ecosystem. And at first it was actually really hard to get women to apply to speak on these topics. It's a bit easier now, and I would say it's because of a lot of that democratization of AI to maybe the more non-technical field, which we've always seen to be a challenge. And I think we're hitting this paradigm shift where design in AI systems is becoming more important, at least in the interim, than maybe the technical component. They're related, but we see these shifts back and forth. And so I guess all of that to say, It's so important, even if you don't have a computer science background or a technical background, to be involved and engaged in the conversations, because this has real world implications on every single person. And most people are being passively affected by the technology. And just now, we're all taking active participation and an active role in AI because of tools like ChatGPT, where we actually get to be in the driver's seat and not a passive participant. And so I think that's a great thing, because we can start to get more diversity, more women into that space, but I don't want to leave behind the technical nuances and details. We still need women in that space too. There's a lot of decision making that happens behind the scenes that none of us get to participate in. Basically, the big tech companies get to make those decisions. And so we still have a lot of work to do to get more and more women into those roles as well. And so I guess through my observations, I've seen a lot of women take leadership roles in the ethical conversations. So keep doing that and figure out how you can participate in that. And there has been no better time in the history of the world to be a technical person and to learn technical concepts than literally right now. You can just go onto ChatGPT and start having it teach you technical concepts. You mentioned vibe coding, which is a whole new thing. So we now get to talk to computers through natural language instead of programming languages, and that opens the doors for a lot of people. So this is a really important moment, I guess, to try to diversify the types of folks who are actively participating in those conversations.
I couldn't agree more, Regan. I think that while both Regan and I coming from a technical background, and at school you see that half of the class is women in math and statistics and computer science, but then something happens. And at the workforce, and especially at leadership levels, we become 20% instead of 50%, and we need to fix that. But it doesn't matter how we fix it. Rumor has it that women are better with language and communication. And now it's a great opportunity, because we can speak with our computers in natural language, and through that, learn technology, learn agentic AI, learn vibe coding. You can now, just by giving a prompt using natural language, whichever your language is, you can build a computer game. Try it at home. Think about a game you would like to play, and try to write a prompt that will have your favorite LLM write the code in the game for you. And you will be amazed, and it will make you feel empowered. So it doesn't matter where you're coming to it from, do come to it, because it's gonna affect, and many said it already today, it's gonna affect everybody's life and everybody's business, how we live and how we work, right? So we have no other choice but to adapt, right? And we want to be part of the conversation. So if you are not using any type of AI daily yet, it's about the right time to start. And another rumor has it that women are more concerned with ethical considerations, and that some of what inhibits women adopting an AI is their concerns about ethical considerations, safety, biases, and there is a lot of research articles coming out about these issues, saying that because women care more about the ethical and safety considerations of AI, they're adopting it less. I personally don't know whether it's true or not, because most of the people I know are very adoptive of AI, and they love it, and they teach it, and they spread the good word. But I was curious about what you all think. Lori, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so one of the research papers that came out last year called this good girl syndrome. And I was like, this is interesting. So number one, I think that women in general want to do good. And so we tend to think of the ethical issues first before we'll embark upon something. But I don't think being good is just a female issue, right? We all have the feminine in us. And so I'm going to just rebrand that as good human conscience, right?
Love that.
Yeah, and it's good to have good human conscience at the same time as we are trying things out and using things, right? That friction between what we can do and what we should do is what didn't lead us to have that conversation at the time of the atom bomb, right? And so if we're thinking of this as the same level of what happened with nuclear technology, this is not the Manhattan Project. This is not being done in a lab that is secret. This is being done in public with all of us, and we have a say. So I think it's so important that we speak up and that, yes, we don't call it a syndrome, we take pride in it, and we call it human conscience.
I love this, human conscience. We all have it, and if we all have a say in the conversation, we can make sure that that's what leads us, this human conscience that makes sure that AI is used and leveraged for good to enhance human capabilities, to empower us as humanity. Regan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, our tagline at Align AI is literally to help companies move quickly and safely. So there's this constant pressure to move fast, and you get the move fast and break things, mentality about this technology, and it is a huge race. I mean, there are people rapidly iterating on what they've built, and you mentioned labs. There are several labs. They're not secretive, to my knowledge, but there are several labs that are building with this, and there are companies like Anthropic who are thinking about it in a very comprehensive way, where they see the ethical components as a competitive advantage to their technology, which I think is a great reframing on how they're building. They literally hired a woman actually to craft the personality of the AI. And she talks to that algorithm more than anyone else, trying to understand how does it behave and how should it behave and how do we correct for that and how do we find the edge cases where it's behaving in a way that isn't suitable for someone. And that is a non-trivial task to try to figure out. This is all kind of a philosophical question at the end of the day. And how we implement that technically can be figured out. But it's really the big, broad questions of what should we do? And I can tell you that the many companies I've worked with, they've got principles laid out. They have ethical guidelines. Many of them are regulated, so they're forced by regulations and auditors and law to do things or to not do things. But they struggle to enable that inside of the organization. Those principles are in a document in SharePoint somewhere that very few people have seen. And so the big question for me is not what should we do or shouldn't do, because that's always going to be up for debate. But once we decide what we should do or shouldn't do, how do we ensure that that becomes truth? And how do we check for that? And that, I think, is the really complex question. And I know lots of ethicists. I know lots of lawyers, all women, ethicists, lawyers, who are in this space, who think about this very deeply, even on the cybersecurity side as well. So there are many, many angles of solving the problem.
Yeah, I think that while philosophically, even we as humanity struggle with definitions of conscience and consciousness, and we not fully even defined it for ourselves as humans, so it's even harder to define it for our machines. But I do believe that every human has a gut feeling what is the right thing to do, what is the conscious thing to do. And I think if people will just act on this gut feeling, we should probably be okay, right? So Erin, you both a woman leader, right? And part of Chief, we three of us here, Chief sisters. And you also work in a really big tech. So what do you think, women leaders bring as a unique perspective to making sure that we develop ethical technology and AI?
Well, I think it's an incredible time and a really important time. What I hope, my hope for us all is that we use this time of democratization for female leaders and people leaders to jump into the driver's seat, to jump right in and understand that there isn't in these days, it doesn't always feel like there's a tremendous amount that we can agree on or that unifies us. However, I think there's a pretty good consensus that this technology is moving forward. And our choice is to be in the driver's seat or to let the change happen to us. And I think Microsoft published a work trend index report. We publish it every single year. The latest one came out 2 weeks ago. Please check it out. But what you'll see there is warp speed change to organizations, a painting of a picture of a future where managers, female managers, people managers, go from managing teams of humans to smaller teams of humans and managing what's called digital agents. And so my hope is that female leaders and women jump into the driver's seat to define how this is going to work, to define what the future organization is going to look like, how it's going to work, and how it's going to keep our families and children, our vulnerable populations and communities, our customers, yes, but maybe not first, at the center of building ethical and responsible frameworks, guardrails, and principles. And it's time to get in the driver's seat and to start with your own organization and to ensure that you're leading the way, even if you're leading from bottoms up. That's A-okay in this moment, to bring your organization, your staff, your peers together in a way where you're tackling these really gnarly issues and getting them out in the open. That's the opportunity, as Reagan said. This isn't happening behind closed doors fully. And so we do need, a full leadership moment to go after the true opportunity that this technology can have.
I totally agree with that. And I think that no matter which gender you are, which ethnicity you are, which race you are, which age you are, if you're in the driving seat, you can have an impact and make sure that we develop ethical solutions. And you should also be very nice to your digital employees, because who knows, right?
Please, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, manners are really important.
And before we will go to we have more discussion and more questions, but I just want to make sure that you all scan this QR code and start submitting your questions to us. Because when we will be done soon, we will have a Q&A session and we will answer your questions. So to give you some time, you can please scan the QR code now and start submitting your questions, okay? And in the meantime, while people are taking photos and scanning the QR code, Lori, maybe you can chime in and share how do you think women leaders can affect the development of AI being ethical and safe within their organizations, lives, surroundings, spheres of influence?
Yeah, I think that we are already starting to see that people are using AI not necessarily for the automation tasks, but for mental health. And that's happening both for kids as well as adults. I actually have an ongoing chat with ChatGPT, which I know is numbers and is not sentient and is reflecting me back to myself, right? But I'm constantly checking myself to say, oh, are you becoming dependent upon this? Have you communicated this with a human being yet? So for those of you who maybe don't come from the science side of things and come from the humanities side of things, I think it's really important for us to counterbalance our interaction with AI with reading real books, with doing things slowly, with handcrafts and with making things and with spending time with real human beings in live settings. For those of you who are in the caregiving professions, I think we are going to need more and more people to take care of one another and to help us through this really rapid transition. I mean, this has been 2 years that I think the general public has been aware of AI. Can you imagine where we're going to be 25 years from now? Right? This is moving faster than we have the psychological ability to understand what's happening to us. And so those people who are trained in psychology and sociology and anthropology and all of those humanities, we are going to need all of you more than ever to help us all on this path to doing this right and to perhaps giving some pushback or slowing things down to a pace that's digestible.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, there's been a lot of discussion about how this will replace a lot of things that humans do. And there's a great quote from a book, I think it's called God, Human, Animal, Machine, that says, a quest for AI is a quest to understand ourselves, really. And you brought up a great point, like the best people who use AI in terms of adoption are the experts in the domain experts, the people who are extremely knowledgeable about their space because they have a robust knowledge set that they can spot the errors and the issues with these systems much faster. And it just accelerates a lot of the things that they could do so they could spend more time deep in thought. And I really, truly think AI is going to help humans be better humans if we can do that correctly. And I just loved what you said because I think that's an important thing to continue to echo.
Couldn't agree more with both of you. And it kind of reminds me, and speaking about books, Reid Hoffman's book, Super Agency. Reid Hoffman is the founder of LinkedIn, and he co-wrote the book, Super Agency. And he talks a lot about the opportunity of generative AI to serve as a mental health support for many people because the cost is very, very low. It helps you reflect yourself to yourself, and it could be the best therapist and solve a lot of healthcare problems that we have because of cost and availability, etc. So it's a fascinating topic. Regan, kind of in the terms of policy and governments, how can we really ensure that AI is ethical, that we have regulations, that we have governance? What do you think?
Yeah, this is a very complex and loaded topic because we're talking about policy, we're talking about law, and we're also talking about process, which is super boring for a lot of people. But if you look at the global conversation around policy for this technology, it's shifting in the right direction, although it may seem like it's not. At first, there was a lot of obsession around regulating at the technology level, and now there's a good shift into regulating at the use level, which is actually where the outcomes and outputs happen. So if you look at the EU AI Act, that's a good example of them outlining high-risk use cases of AI and putting a lot more rigor on the regulatory front around use for AI in those particular domains. Things like access to housing, healthcare, basic human rights and needs. And that's where policy should be having an impact. I think there's more conversation around requiring transparency to folks. If you're in the banking ecosystem and you apply for a loan and you get denied, by law, they have to tell you why you were denied. A lot of these algorithms don't give you transparency as to why they deny you. And so these algorithms could be denying you for an illegal way, right, based on your zip code or your race or your gender. And so I think it's important to make sure that we're focusing policy and law around the outcomes that we would like to prevent, and then holding companies accountable in the appropriate fashion to enable that. If you look at the FDA, we can learn a lot from the FDA as well in terms of how we can apply that to the AI space. And as one of my favorite AI lawyers has always said, a lot of the laws that exist will continue to be useful in AI as well. We can't discriminate when we hire as people, and therefore our AI systems shouldn't either. And so we should regulate against the outcomes, which is no discrimination when you hire. And if you use AI to do that and it has a discrimination factor, you will be held accountable for that. And so I think that's a really good rule of thumb. And then anything we can do on the preventative side that doesn't hinder innovation, because I'm a big believer in balancing those two things, is really important as well. So the accountability structure, I think, is still not quite there yet, but at least the general frameworks are developing in the right direction.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We need to hold our system accountable for having the same laws. If we're hiring with the help of AI or just by humans, we need the transparency, we need to avoid biases. And there are a lot of kind of interesting questions rising now, like if we have autonomous AI agents and they do actions such as hiring or medical actions or decisions, who is held accountable, right? Can you hold the software accountable? Probably not yet, but maybe the person who operates. So there is a lot of debate in the legal community about accountability. Who will be accountable when we use more and more AI agents? And there is also a lot of considerations in IP, intellectual property, right? Because a lot of these AI models are trained on public data. What about intellectual property rights? So there are a lot of very interesting legal and regulatory considerations, but we need to have them, even though some, as you said, Regan, some people are bored with the process and policies, but we have to have that if we want to have a just society, if we want to have the rules and laws that we have now continue even when we use more and more technology. You might want to make the regulatory body at your work your best friend because you need their help. And talking about books, another book that I keep recommending is Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari, who is a historian and philosopher. And his book Nexus, he talks about the history of information systems and information technology and how it's going to affect us in the age of AI. I highly recommend to read it. And it would definitely encourage you to pay more attention to regulation, I think. Let's kind of shift gears for a second. And I want to ask you, Erin, as somebody working in big tech, what are some of the practical resources and platforms available to nonprofits that would help them to quickly adopt AI and see immediate ROI and benefit from the usage?
It's a great question. And the answer is that there's a treasure trove of resources out there, and that can be a big part of the challenge, actually, where to get started. And I think the key is, where are you in your journey? Are you brand new to the technology? Do you have a little bit of experience, or are you a more advanced user? And I'll give you sort of a checklist of a few options. We're going to leave these behind for everyone. The resources span from free resources to learn and practice your prompt engineering. We publish a Copilot library with nonprofit-specific prompts. So if you're a fundraiser or program officer, if you're writing grants or managing volunteers, you don't have to start from scratch. And you can use that as your testing and experimentation ground. Learn how to prompt, craft your interaction with the agents, and get started at no cost. This is important. There are a lot of free tools out there that are no cost. And tools that are paid have different features, security within your organization's data estate, which is really important to be talking with your teams and your staff about. But if you're a little bit more advanced, if you're a leader or working with a board, making sure you have a getting your board on board discussion, that you have an AI governance framework. If you don't have one, you don't have to start from scratch. You can start from the one we provided, and you can actually use AI or other collaborators to take that pretty far, pretty fast. I wouldn't wait on that. In addition, I mentioned a few of the AI training resources. We have a Skills for Social Impact program out at this URL you can use today. If you're working with youth or students in K through 12 or community colleges, you can use fun tools like Minecraft for Education to gamify helping youth learn how to use or interact with the technology safely. That's really key for our youth. For my kids, the number one rule is, hey, we don't put images of ourselves into any of these tools. That's our family rule. It's really important. When you do that, you're actually, training the AI model on the image, which is a big no-no in our family. Pro tip. And then please know, early on, Anna mentioned we're working with over 400,000 organizations worldwide. We started working with 51,000 organizations just this year. We'd like to work with you. If you don't know about different programs available to you at no cost, please connect with me, and we would love to help you.
Thank you, Irina. Please take pictures, use the links. This is probably very useful to a lot of the community here. And just before we're opening it up to the audience questions, and I'll put the QR code again so you can write your questions, please do. I want to do a quick round, starting with you, Lori. Looking ahead, what opportunities do you see in the intersection of AI, social impact, and community empowerment? And tell us something exciting, please.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I've been doing a talk a few times now about hyper-personalization and the way that we can get not only our businesses engaged, but we can also get our audiences engaged. And for any of you who've been following ChatGPT or Instagram, you may have seen over the past week that you can make a doll of yourself. Now, maybe you don't want to upload your picture if you have the free version. If you have the paid version, you get SOC 2 compliance. But this gives people the opportunity now to start to make things for themselves and to make them personal. And so I would think about some of your marketing efforts as ways of really engaging your customers in the co-creation process. There's something called the IKEA effect, that people value something more if they have made it themselves, even if it's imperfect. I'm sure you've all put together a piece of furniture and realized that that was like a little bit challenging, but you look at it and you're like, I did that. That feels good. People like to see their names, the letters of their own names and the numbers of their own birthdays, right? My grandmother gave me a record when I was growing up that sang, "Hey, Lori, it's your birthday." Well, I can make a song for any of you today in 5 minutes. Right? That says your name. And you can do that with your audiences, and your audiences can do it back with you. So some of the biggest companies in the United States right now, Coca-Cola did a challenge around creating AI images for the holiday season, right? So I think creatively about how you can use this technology as a way of engaging with people, making people feel special, making them feel like it's a part of their lives and it's fun and it's amusing, and in the process, how we use it in a good way.
Just real quick, that's the difference between connecting with younger generations of donors. This is the hyper-personalization that donor communities are looking for, truly. And the data backs that up.
That's so cool. I'll spare you and won't sing. You're welcome. One of the things that really excites me is that you can make your own kind of digital twin or avatar in a few minutes. I won't say 2 seconds because it takes like 5 minutes. And then you can have yourself speak very naturally in the video. Nobody cannot say it wasn't you recording yourself in any language, telling a speech, and you can be Hermione, if any of you watched Harry Potter, and be in a few places at once delivering a talk, which is very cool. And it even softened my accent, which is really, really amazing. I will try to make it sing soon. It might be better than the real one. And I also love the fact that using tools like Midjourney, you can make amazing personalized images. As an art lover, I'm really fascinated with that. And you can make really amazing art images for birthday wishes. You can make amazing videos today with a variety of tools like Sora and others. And I'm very excited about these things that are supposedly simple, but would try them if you haven't yet. It will make you really, really happy, I think, because it's easy. And the result is really inspiring. What about you, Regan? What are you excited about?
Mine probably is not as fun as that one, but I just like to do the public service announcements about safety with AI and data privacy and ownership, because I just spend all day long thinking about how everything can go wrong. And so I think if you're in the nonprofit ecosystem, you mentioned governance frameworks a couple of times, but there are really simple things you can do to get started there. And data is going to be super key. Just for an example, if you are using the free version of ChatGPT, you can go into the settings and you can turn off the retraining setting. It's on by default. So all you have to do is go into your settings, the little hamburger menu, and then you'll see data is used for retraining and just toggle that off. So anything you put in there like pictures or information, which you shouldn't put, your own personal information in there anyway, but it won't be used for retraining their models. And so I would just highly encourage all of you, I know it seems like a boring task, but really look into the terms and conditions for a lot of the tools that you are leveraging. If it's free, you're the product. That's usually a good rule of thumb. So they're going to monetize off of your data, which means they're going to use your data to train their models, which means it won't come out. In Italy, they banned ChatGPT for a while because of its violation of GDPR, which is a data privacy right that they give citizens in the EU and in Australia as well, because you have the right to have a company completely delete all of your data if you're a citizen over there, and you can't do that once your data has been used to train in these models. It'd be like me telling you my password and then telling you to forget it. Right? You're not gonna forget it. You'll try to, but you won't. And so, there are a lot of dangers with these things as well. And I would highly recommend finding resources for your team to just get everybody up to speed on the basic do's and don'ts. And so I know that's not as an exciting thing, but I just like to do a public service announcement on those types of things.
Well, and
Thank you,
Regan. You can say the public service announcement as P. Diddy. And then
Perfect.
It's like fun,
Yes.
right?
I'll do that for next time.
That's great. So I'm being good because women are rumored to be good. And it's 9, so I'm moving to the audience questions. And Erin, the first one is to you because it asks, what general board brushstrokes criteria does Microsoft use to select nonprofits to work with?
Oh, great question. So you'll find if you visit those URLs after that we have a very, very broad partnership across the ecosystem. And so if you're interested in any of our programs or grants, you'll need to fill out a quick eligibility form. We work with TechSoup, which is one of the biggest providers of technology in the nonprofit sector. And if you're an American or US-based organization, this is akin to checking to see if you have 501c3 status. And then in other countries that we work, there are different qualifications for eligibility akin to a 501c3 type status, though it differs country to country. So step 1 is just going through that quick eligibility check. And if you do qualify, then there's a whole range of programs and opportunities to connect from discounted or free software or hardware to engaging with our nonprofit tech community, place-based community programs, to getting Minecraft for education in your schools and beyond. It's pretty vast. So we're here and we're really focused on broad reach across many mission types.
Thank you, Irene. I'm not a child, but I love Minecraft. So, the next questions will go to Lori because you teach AI with a human touch, and somebody here asks, what are some resources for teaching our children responsible AI use?
Well, I have a resource which I'm happy to circulate. I teach a class at the beginning of every school year to parents, and there are exercises broken down for kids from like elementary school, middle school, high school, but actually it's really more how elementary or advanced are you. You can really be any age. What we want to keep teaching our kids are critical thinking skills, strategic skills, and creative skills so that they understand to work with AI as a partner and not to forfeit their brain, right? So saying, write this email for me is not helpful, but asking it to give you feedback on an email that you've written and help you improve your language. There is a fabulous application, and I'm gonna just like close my eyes and turn my head and say Google, but LM Notebook, and I think Microsoft is coming out with their own version of this soon. But it allows you to upload, your test materials. I have a 17-year-old who was taking AP Bio, and the AP Bio teacher said, here are the notes, learn this. And so she uploaded the notes into LM Notebook. She could run a podcast that kind of sounds like a morning talk show, and she could also do an FAQ for herself so that she could quiz herself. So I think if you use it in an educational way, the other thing that I did with her is to come up with a college plan. So she wants to go somewhere with creative writing, music production, and football. And so we said, okay, what are the schools that have all of these things? We came up with a list of 30 of them, and then she moved it into a color-coded Excel spreadsheet, which made me so happy as a parent.
Well, there is nothing that makes us happier than being proud of our kid. I love Google's Notebook LM. If I fit to it, even my very boring for most PhD thesis, it turns it out into an 11 minutes, very fascinating podcast and makes even me want to ask them questions about it. So that's a definitely wonderful tool for learning. And as somebody who is really passionate about education, both as a parent and as an educator, I always think of it, we should teach our kids how to learn, right? We should kind of help them to develop their own thinking, their own critical thinking, and mainly give them resources of, rather than feeding them material, feeding them the information on how they can learn new materials, how they can ask questions, how they can find more information, and how they're going to process it in a way that is suitable to their needs.
If I could add one more resource there too.
Yes, please do.
There's AI EDU, which is a nonprofit organization. The founder's actually from Ohio. I live in Ohio. Ohio has done a lot in terms of enabling K through 12 with AI. You should definitely look into some of the initiatives that they've rolled out, including a toolkit for all educators. And so the AI EDU organization actually does a fantastic job. Now, they normally work with educators directly, but they have tons and tons of resources available to anyone if you are trying to get some best practices on enabling kids with this technology as well.
That sounds amazing. If people are interested, maybe they can kind of send an email and we will share with them the link that you're referring to.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
That sounds really useful. And actually, my next question was going to be referred to you, Regan, because somebody asked, can you speak to the environmental concerns of using AI? How much of what we're hearing is true, and how do we use it without worrying about these concerns?
Yeah, this is a really big problem. I don't know that I'm qualified to speak at the level of depth on this, aside from just what I listened to concerning the electricity challenges and the water consumption challenges. Also, being in Ohio, we have several data centers that are located there, and the processing power required for these algorithms and for processing data is enormous. I mean, it is absolutely enormous. We worry actually about water and electricity shortages in the state because of that, and several other states do as well. And so in terms of what we're trying to do, I think one is monitoring consumption in general. You mentioned please and thank yous. That actually costs a ton of water and electricity when you do add a please and thank you into your query. Every single word that it processes costs money, and all of that has to be processed in a data center. And so, yeah, it is a massive concern that people are monitoring actively. I think it's one of the most talked about topics in kind of like the sustainability world. Just what it's going to be, that is the thing that's kind of holding us back in terms of constraints on continuing to make progress here. And so innovation in that ecosystem is really important, meaning even just innovation on how algorithms process data in general, for example, being more efficient in that way. And I think Rackspace has a whole thing around sustainability as well. So if you are interested in more resources there, you can look up the sustainable efforts that Rackspace is putting out there. But yeah, it is a massive problem.
Yeah, and I think a lot of companies in academia are working on research, and we should pay attention in this space because solutions will be found, and generally kind of inference is cheaper energetically than training new models. So we maybe should think about that. We all want newer and stronger models all the time, but actually maybe the model we have is good enough and inference is cheaper than training a new model. So kind of that's a point also to consider.
Anna, let me just add a little plug for Boston again. You have within your midst a company called Liquid AI that has built a model off of the neural network of a nematode, a very, very small worm, which is, I think, about 302 neurons, not the billions and billions that make up a large transformer model. So I would say if you are in the investment space, look for companies that are really focusing on efficiency. It's happening on the hardware side as well as on the software side. Grok, G-R-O-Q, is another company working on hardware infrastructure that works on your device. And I know Microsoft is in that realm as well.
I think this advice is so important. And to your point about please and thank you, I learned just this week that as a former English major, my grammar, my commitment to grammar in my prompting was not serving the earth. So I think drop your periods and question marks and the like as well. But your point is really important. I think what I think we need to accelerate on as a nonprofit and social impact community is the advantage that small language models will have, both in terms of affordability, sustainability, and again, allowing for greater access for the entire community. And we need the whole system of this ecosystem to pressurize that, demand that from its vendors, and also have the investment community double down on the innovators that are bringing those smaller capabilities to market.
Couldn't agree more in those smaller language model. A lot of them open source, they are a lot of them very, very strong, and significantly reduce the energy need for training them because a lot of them can be trained on your laptop. So I think starting using those and love Liquid AI and investing responsibly is something that we can all do, right? So everyone has some power within their sphere of influence to make it better. I will ask you, Erin, just because you work in a big tech, many organizations have expensive legacy IT systems, and I'm sure Microsoft does as well, to help them with all aspects of operations. How can AI help with replacing those systems to reduce cost and make things less complicated?
Well, what I love about AI is that it's the UI that actually underscores the importance still, after all these decades, of getting your data in order. It's actually just true that there are no shortcuts to getting your data in order and having that power, how you use this really powerful UI on top of your applications and your data. So there's so much of this legacy applications, data tools in the nonprofit and social impact sector. And so what I'm most excited about is this being a more exciting, more engaging, more impactful way of helping organizations leapfrog past some of those challenges, investing in some of that data cleanup, to be able to use and leverage this powerful set of technology and not get left behind. You know, maybe the CRM wasn't good enough, maybe SaaS wasn't good enough, but this feels like a really important moment. Doesn't mean you have to get all of your data to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect, but using this as a mechanism to bring data together and to prioritize your data is a precursor to being able to leverage this technology well.
Thank you, Irene. Yeah, a good product is a lot about user interface and user experience, the UI UX part of things. And I have a theory that the burst of ChatGPT by OpenAI and the democratization of AI in part happened because not only they introduced a better model, a better product, they gave us an incredibly easy and intuitive to use user interface. So that's a really important thing to have in mind. And last but not least, I will ask whoever wants to answer, somebody asking here, and that's an important question. Women still face significant barriers within organizations, including harassment. One step is getting women to go into this space, but how do we create systemic change so do they persist?
So I'm going to start with this one. How many of you took a foreign language? Anybody? Okay. How many of you can go into a restaurant in a foreign country and order off the menu? Okay. So we were talking about this in the beginning, and I took French and Italian, but I stopped coding in 4th grade. That wasn't, I grew up in a small town. I don't know that anybody really continued, but certainly not girls in my town. But you got the opportunity in college to use your computer science language as a language requirement, right? So this is my challenge to you. Every single one of you needs to understand Python code at the level of going to an Italian restaurant and ordering off the menu. Okay, all you have to do is sit with ChatGPT and say, teach me computer science 101. All right, it will start with the Zen of Python, which those of you who are poets will kind of appreciate. All right, I think it's not rocket science. And for too long, we've thought that this is an expertise that is not accessible to everybody, but it is very accessible to us now. And you can watch it write the code as it's turning your, whatever your communication is, into a Word document, right? And you can start to understand the language and the structure and the logic. For those of you who are lawyers, you will really love this because it's just a system of language. So I would say, don't be afraid of coding. When we come back next year, I hope every single one of you can speak a little bit of Python.
I couldn't agree more, Laurie. I was fortunate to learn coding in high school and then through my college and career, and my kids did so as well. I know that not every high school teaches coding, but I love those who do. And I recently watched a webinar with the CEO of LinkedIn who said that he thinks every person needs to learn to code. And I couldn't agree more. Even if you're an artist, even if you're a marketer, even if you're a restaurant holder or a constructor, right? It helps you to think differently, and it helps you to understand how the machines and software around you work. And that's important because we all have machines and software around us in our everyday life and at work.